Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very honored to have with us Captain James Hawkins. He's the Commanding Officer, Naval Station, Great Lakes. Good evening, Captain Hawkins.
Good evening, Dr. Brooks.
We're very happy that you've taken time from your busy schedule to be with us on the Community Forum. Great Lakes has been known as the other city in Lake County, but we're very fortunate to have you with us to tell us all there is to know about Great Lakes, about that great city that's serving this county. Tell our listening audience a little bit, Captain Hawkins, about your personal and professional background.
All right, well, I grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just a little bit north of here.
Just local person.
Local guy. So I grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and attended the University of Notre Dame on a Navy ROTC scholarship, and got my commission out of Notre Dame. So after college, after the commission, went into the Navy, Naval Air, and started flying E-2 Hawkeyes, which is an airborne early warning aircraft off aircraft carriers. Did that for about 10 years. After that, I had command of a shore installation out in San Diego, had the chance to be a navigator on an aircraft carrier, worked at NORAD and U.S. Northcom out in Colorado Springs, and then was given the opportunity to take command of Naval Station Great Lakes back in March 3rd of 2015.
Well, tell us about the history and the impact of Naval Station Great Lakes.
It's got a great history, and I've learned something about it every day. But back right around the turn of the century, they started looking at putting a naval station here in the Midwest because they found good sailors coming out of the Midwest and thought it'd be a good place to put some training. So around 1911, in fact, on July 1st, 1911, after the studies were done, they opened Naval Station Great Lakes. At that point in time, it was called Naval Training Station Great Lakes. And the first recruits, I think, graduated that fall. World War I, providing sailors to the fleet. Up through World War II, the base continued on, changed around 1944, 1945, just changed the name to Naval Training Center, which it stayed until they changed it now to Naval Station Great Lakes in 2001. And it's been Naval Station Great Lakes ever since. Currently, we have about 50 tenant commands, about 20,000 people working on the base every day.
Wow. I retired from Great Lakes as a civilian employee, though, in November 1990. It was from the Public Works Center. I understand it's the Public Works Department now,
Yes, sir.
But I was the Equal Employment Opportunity Manager there for about 9 years there, and really enjoyed it there, But now, Public Works Department, though, how does that, you still have the captain who's the commanding officer, but he's located at a different location?
He sure is, yes, sir. So when they went to Naval Station Great Lakes and really established a different structure. So you have to kind of break it down into even outside of just public works. So the admiral who used to be Naval Training Center, who was on Naval Station Great Lakes, we still have one admiral, and they're now called Naval Service Training Command. But the base no longer falls under that admiral. So my boss is in Norfolk, and then the boss, the captain who works all the public works, who works all of our utilities and our streets, is also in Norfolk. So it's a branch. All of our headquarters are out in Norfolk, Virginia, and the Public Works Department works for both me and for the Public Works officer for the whole region out in Norfolk, Virginia.
I remember Admiral Draper L. Kaufman was the admiral about 1972. I guess I can remember that. But he covered, it was a 9th Naval District there, covered about 12 states, 12 or 13 states. But that's no longer this.
No, sir. It changed again. I think it was maybe in the 70s. 9th Naval District was disestablished.
Okay.
And so the structure that we're under right now, and it seems, I get those questions a lot. I say, what happened? Naval Training Center doesn't exist. Well, not really. What the Navy did is they kind of functionalized and really lined up the money so that it went to the right folks. So previously, back in the day, the admiral who was in charge of Great Lakes, all the money came in and it was a training base, so he had to use his training money for both training things and for base things.
Right.
And when he had to do that, if I were the training guy, I probably would have put all my money in training, and that's kind of what happened throughout the Navy. So right around 2001 through 2003, the Navy changed the structure, so now we created Naval Installations Command, and so dedicated money now goes into that command, which then goes into what we call these Navy regions, and that money is dedicated to taking care of the base. So the money is no longer being fought for locally. So do I do a new training bill? Do I do something for training and then have to not do plowing the streets? It's different funding lines, had to do a different structure. So it does make sense, but it's still confusing to folks. People think that I might be a department head on the base, or I work for the admiral and I do the base. My boss is in Norfolk, and of those 50 tenant commands that I have, I am there, and my monies are there to support their missions. So I support the admiral staff. We support the boot camp. We support all of the schools. So it's a bit confusing, but I think once it's taken me about my 2.5 years so far to get my head around it. But it's the right thing to do, and it really guarantees, or more, it just better guarantees that the base gets the money it needs, so they can be a sustained force, and we're not taking money away from training to go into the base, at least not locally.
Captain Hawkins, you mentioned there are approximately 50 different commands on the base.
Yes, sir.
Let's just talk about just a few of them, so that people will know a little bit of what's going on. What about a recruit training command?
Yes, sir. Recruit training command. That is the biggest tenet of the 50.
Okay.
So it's commonly known as boot camp, and they put through about 35,000 to 40,000 sailors every year right now. It's the only boot camp the Navy has. It's the largest tenant command on base. We've got a staff over 1,000 folks who are, as they say, pushing boots and creating those young sailors. Back in after the BRAC, and when the Navy decided that they wanted just one boot camp, the government put in $750 million into Great Lakes to upgrade that boot camp into really a cutting edge training environment that it is right now. So folks I get stopped often, and folks want to talk about when they went through boot camp in the 50s or 60s. It's all different. All those wooden barracks are gone, and it's all new stuff, and they do a great job over at Recruit Training Command.
So now you are the only boot training command, I guess, in the world, right?
For the Navy, yes, sir. And Captain Mike Garrick, he is responsible for Recruit Training Command. He's the commanding officer of that tenant command, and
okay.
It is the only boot camp for the Navy, yes, sir.
This area got real challenged. There was some talk about the closing of the Great Lakes,
Yes,
and
sir.
you gave us the reason why it's here, because of the Midwest and this type of thing. But there were 3 training centers, I guess. There was camps. There was San Diego and Orlando.
Yes, sir.
And those 3 were, so I guess we had a real challenged senator that really worked and got out. And how Great Lakes won over the warmer climate, Orlando and San Diego, I don't know, but I guess it was politics. So yeah.
Well, I can't comment on politics, sir, but I think they came to the right decision. How's that?
Right.
So it's here in the Midwest, but it is centrally located. And Captain Garrick and the folks at Recruit Training Command do a great job making sailors and getting them out to the fleet or to their next school.
Well, the people in Lake County really feel that the right decision was made,
Yes, sir.
But tell us a little bit about the impact of Great Lakes in this area.
Well, with the 50 tenant commands on base and about 20,000 people living and working on base every day. Study that was done by Lieutenant Governor back in the 2013-2014 timeframe, looked at the economic impact of Naval Station Great Lakes here in Lake County
Okay.
and in northeastern Illinois. And that study came to say that the with Great Lakes being here, looking at everything beyond just salaries, but contracts and the educational monies that come in, it's the Great Lakes provides $4.6 billion with a B dollars to the gross domestic product of Illinois.
Wow.
So it's a pretty significant impact, and a lot of great people up here too. It's a great neighborhood to be in.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll fast forward a little bit and talk about the. You have a Navy, what's it called, Navy History Museum.
Oh yes, sir.
Now it's on the base now, but there's some discussion about moving the location into North Chicago. Eh?
Well, I think this is in my opinion, a great story. Back a number of years ago, some folks who really loved loved the Navy and loved the base started a museum here at Great Lakes.
Okay.
And it was a Great Lakes Naval Museum. It started small, and it grew, and eventually ended up right outside the main gate, where it is right now. We call Building 42, which is a historic building.
Okay.
Just recently, the Navy made it one of the 10 National Navy Museums, and changed the name from the Great Lakes Naval Museum to the National Museum of the American Sailor.
Okay.
And with that, there is a move afoot to build a purpose-built building somewhere in North Chicago, and those things are still moving on. I know the city and Naval History and Heritage Command, which is responsible for all the Navy museums, are working very closely with a couple of foundations in the city. And then in time, there may be a brand new building just down the road from Great Lakes. But right now, the museum exists. It's open to the public nearly every day, and it tells a great story about sailors and the history of sailors and what they've contributed to the Navy and to the country. And I look forward to being able to come back here and see a new museum, a bigger museum, a larger museum that's really on the national level that the museum needs to be. Again, it is the only museum completely dedicated to enlisted sailors anywhere in the U.S.
Wow. Another command, a Naval Service Training Command.
Oh, yes, sir. Naval Service Training Command, that is the one admiral who's on base. And Admiral Evans has just left, and Admiral Bernacchi just came in. And that is the only flag admiral tenant command I have. So I don't work for the admiral. I get that often, but when he calls, I take that call and work with his staff. But Admiral of Naval Service Training Command is responsible for all the Navy sessions throughout the country: boot camp, officer candidate school, JROTC, the junior officer training programs, as well as the high school ROTC programs. Admiral Bernacchi right now is responsible for all of those, everything except the Naval Academy. So if you're coming into the Navy, his staff and the folks that work for him are supporting you and getting the training you need to become that sailor, that officer.
So these, you're over all of these, the 50 tenants, they're tenants of yours, right?
I'm not over them, sir. I am there to support them. I like to consider myself this job. I'm really the landlord of the base. So those folks have their missions that they are there to support. I provide what they need from a building perspective, as well as public safety, including fire department, and we work with the public works department, child welfare center, child development centers, morale, welfare, and recreation, all those things to make sure that those 50 tenant commands can meet their mission. But they all work for their own functional chains, which makes sense when it comes from a funding. I've got a good relationship, I hope, with all these tenant commands, and again, my job is to make sure they can meet their mission from the base perspective.
You have a training support center as the tenant.
Yes, sir. TSC, the Training Support Center, they're really what used to be service school, from my understanding, back in the day. So Captain Meskimen is responsible for Training Support Center, and they take 40% of the recruits that graduate will come across to the main side of the base. And Training Support Center is really the enlisted surface warfare center of excellence. So he takes those sailors, makes sure that the sailorization continues, works with the base to make sure they're getting fed, housed, and then there are 4 to 5 other actual schoolhouses where those sailors go during the day to learn their technical skills before they go to the fleet. And all of that really comprises that center of excellence. But TSC really owns those sailors and makes sure that they get fed, housed, and takes care of them.
Quite a responsibility. Right?
It is. It's an honor to support them. It's a lot of folks, though. At any point in time, Really, about every day, it's about 4,000 of those sailor students, between 4,000 and 5,000 are on the main side of the base, going to school and getting that technical training.
Recently, we had the dedication of the Captain James A. Lovell Federal Healthcare Center.
Yes, sir.
Now, how did that come about?
Well, back a number of years ago, it used to be the Navy Hospital on the Naval Station and then the VA Hospital out in North Chicago, as you know. So some folks got together up and thought it would be efficient and effective to combine those two enterprises into one hospital, which is now the Federal Healthcare Center, which does not fall on the Naval Station. We kind of surround it. That's VA, Veterans Administration land.
Okay.
But they do provide our medical services. So Recruit Training Command, Training Support Center, those 50 tenant commands do get medical support from the Lovell Federal Healthcare Center. It is the only hospital in the country that is a combined VA and Navy hospital. So about 1/3 to half of the staff is Navy, and the other 2/3 to half are VA staff. But it's all one team, and they are providing, I think, do a great job providing the medical support to the recruits, to the veterans in the area, to all of the active duty. So when you go in, it's not uncommon to see a recruit right next to a World War II vet talking, waiting for the same services that are being offered by the Federal Healthcare Center.
The area was real excited that CS Senator Kirk, I guess, was the one that spearheaded that concept.
Yes, sir.
You say it's the only one in the country?
As far as I know, I believe both in the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration are maybe looking at doing some other places, but for the past, I believe 5, almost 6 years, it's been here as the only combined Navy and VA hospital. Yes, sir, only one.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, another building that's located on the corner of Green Bay Road and Buckley Road. It's called the United States Military Entrance Processing Command.
Yes, sir. They got a big old long name and a lot of people. But MEPCOM is like to shorten everything up in the military. You know that.
Right.
We can talk acronyms all day long, but Military Entrance Processing Command. Anybody who comes into the military, that headquarters is responsible for all of them, whether it's the Army or the Navy, the Marine Corps, Air Force. They're responsible for all the MEPs, those entrance processing centers all throughout the country. So their headquarters, primary headquarters, as well as the two sectional headquarters are all in that building. And that building also has some other commands in it as well. But it's you could argue, actually I think it's a fact, if you've come into the service any time in the last 50 years, Great Lakes has touched your life from MEPCOM or from the Navy, definitely from the boot camp perspective.
So every sailor, or all military, the testing is provided there?
The testing is not provided. It's just the headquarters elements. All of the MEPs, the entrance processing commands, are all throughout the country, and the headquarters is here at Great Lakes. But all of the processing, all of those testings, that's done all throughout the country, and they report back to their the two sector headquarters and then to the main headquarters.
Well, tell us about, speaking of testing and entering, there's another building on Buckley Road called a Golden 13. Golden 13, yeah. Right.
Yes, sir.
You want to tell us about it?
Well, and it's on Recruit Training Command, and the Golden 13 is named after the first African-American officers who earned their commission during World War II. It's a great building, and part of the history of Great Lakes, but every brand new sailor who comes on to entering the Navy, every one of them, they start their first day in the Golden 13. That's where they come in, and we say, welcome to the Navy. They might get a haircut, might get some gym shorts and a T-shirt, and welcome aboard. But that's where they come. That's where they come aboard, and like I say, it's a interesting, proud history we have here at Great Lakes, and that building is a great tribute to those 13 gentlemen who got that first commission.
You know, this is so significant that this is this promulgated all over the Naval area, that the Golden 13, I think it started out as 16, then 13, it ended up with 13. It got the highest scores in the Navy for they were first African American to pass the test, will pass the test
Yes,
for
sir.
officers,
Yes, sir.
and that's really historical. You know?
It was. They were an incredible group of young men who, I'll be honest, from as I've studied the story, they overcame a lot of extra obstacles, but they stuck together and they performed incredibly well, and they earned that commission and had a hard path, but it's an interesting and part of the history of Great Lakes. But that building will always commemorate the work that they did and what they achieved.
Amazing.
Yes, sir.
For a group of men, to score the highest scores ever
Yes,
achieved
sir.
in the Navy, and through all the obstacles, like you said, he went through.
Lots
with.
of obstacles, but they paved a road for a lot of men and women behind them. But yeah, they scored well, and some folks didn't believe it and challenged that, but they did it, did well.
Let's talk about a little about the logistics again, the location, the acreage, population.
Oh,
and
yes,
this
sir.
group.
Right now, the base is about 1,600 acres
Wow.
total, and I guess we have about 20,000 people living, working on the base at any one time.
Wow.
There's also the public-private housing, that public-private venture housing that was right outside the installation, which is about 1,150 homes that back in the 90s, Department of Defense privatized the military housing. So there's a partner who manages those, but it's still federal land. We've got, I believe it's about 50 miles worth of roads on the installation. We have I mentioned earlier, we have our own security forces who work very closely with Lake County Sheriff and North Chicago and Lake Bluff, the police departments, very closely with them, great partnerships to keep the base and working in the area to keep everybody informed and safe. Our fire department, we provide ambulance services. So there's a lot of things going on every day.
You mentioned there's a lot of things going on every day. Is there a typical day for Captain Hawkins?
A typical day, I'll say no, but I'll try to give you one.
Okay.
So we normally get into work, check a couple emails, see what happened overnight.
Okay.
I like to then I will have kind of a rhythm where I meet with my individual staffs. I've got within the installation, we probably have about 25 different, I'll kind of call them direct reports working within their areas, whether it be the fire chief or the security officer or morale, welfare, and recreation. And so I've got a rhythm of meeting with them, and I'll normally cover those meetings maybe in the morning. At some point in time during the day, something happens that we did not plan, and I get usually called away for that. Maybe a meeting or two on some things that we didn't plan on happening, whether it be a broken sewer line or something along those lines. A couple more meetings in the afternoon, try to get a workout in there some point in time. And then in the evening, usually have maybe an event a couple times a week that will hit in the evenings, whether it's working with the ombudsman, who are some of our spouses who help take care of the families of our service members. It's a great program, but we'll meet every so often, maybe every other month, sometimes more than that, with the ombudsmans for the commands on base to see if, again, the base who's there to support these other tenant commands, making sure we're providing for the commands and their families. And then I'll get home, have dinner, help the kids with the homework, try to go to bed.
You still have time to help the kids with homework then, huh?
Sometimes, yes.
Right. Oh, speaking of that, there's a family service center too.
Yes, sir.
Is that just part of one of the other commands?
The family, we have a Fleet and Family Support Center that does fall under the installation.
Okay.
So the Fleet and Family provides support to the families and to the fleet. We do financial counseling, family counseling, and take care of just those needs that pop up, that a lot of those things that you just don't plan for. But we've got counselors there. We have smart folks, again, who can talk financial support, financial planning. Some folks maybe aren't too good at balancing a checkbook as a young person who just started out in the Navy, maybe don't understand a car loan, and we can provide some of that support. We also have child youth programs and centers who are there to support our military families with child care as they're working.
What about is there a Great Lakes hotel too?
We have that service too, sir.
That's under one of the commands.
No, it's under us. It's under the Naval Station as well, sir. That's one of the other branches I have. We call it Navy Gateway Inn and Suites, but we have a hotel on the base that military members, family members, dependents, and guests who are guests of a Navy member can stay on the installation as well. So we have that. And then the Navy Exchange also has the Navy Lodge, which is out more in the housing area that is outside our normal fence line. Mm-hmm. So there are places for military members who are visiting the base to stay.
I mentioned at the top of the program, you're a city within a city, but you have McDonald's and other facilities where they say they don't have to go off the base and support.
Yeah, we do. We have the Navy Exchange, which is a shopping mall, and it's both inside. We have one on inside the fence line and then one out on Buckley Road where the commissary is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There are some fast food restaurants both on base at the Exchange and another place. But we also have a galley, which is Navy term for cafeteria.
Right.
And the galley is there to serve our sailor students. In fact, we have more than one galley. We have about 9 galleys operational at any one point in time. So I believe it was last year we served 8.8 million meals in the galley.
Wow.
Between the galleys supporting the recruits and the galleys supporting the sailors who are in the center of excellence, learning their technical trade. I think our grocery bill was about $30 million last year to feed those folks.
Wow.
So they push out a lot of hamburgers.
Right. I guess the Navy found out it's cheaper to privatize housing on the base than to support it itself then, right?
Yes, sir. We have those 1,150 houses outside the fence line are run by a partner who is in property management. Mm-hmm. And that happened back in the 90s. And in my opinion, I think a pretty good call because Navy, we like to work on ships, airplanes, and we're pretty good at fixing our buildings. But when it came to that number of houses and to run it really how it should be run and how a Navy family, how any family would want, we need the pros to come in. So the Navy and really all the Department of Defense transition to that kind of setup. So we have that partner. It's a public-private partnership. The partners have a lease of all of the houses, so they're responsible for managing that and getting folks in and out. But it's a partnership. So as the CEO of the base, my housing office is working side by side with our partner just to make sure they're meeting the requirements and making sure we're taking care of our families as we should.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Naval Station is really government friendly with the city of North Chicago too, right? Because you have you mentioned about the history museum is about to be placed there outside the gate.
Yes, sir. It is a great partnership with North Chicago, and I talk to the mayor relatively often and appreciate all the support that the city of North Chicago provides to our families, to the installation. And like we mentioned, the police work well together. They train together. We had an exercise on the base very recently where, looking at a couple of situations in North Chicago, police officers were right next to the security force responding as one team, which was great to see. Our fire department on base worked very closely with the North Chicago Fire Department and support one another, which is, again, a great thing. I know our public works folks talk. And Mayor Rockingham, again, is just incredibly supportive of the base. And if we need something or if we have a question, he's always available to answer the questions for us.
I know at one time there was a naval person that attended the city council meetings, but that it doesn't happen anymore.
Every once in a while we'll stop by, not too often. We do have some engagements on a little bit more regular basis with the school district right now. But the chief of staff for the city, the mayor, we chat pretty often, and I know that the department heads within the city chat with the department heads on the base from the public works, police, and fire side. So if we need to be there, I know that the chief of staff will give us a holler and say, hey, you might want to be here to talk at the city council. But we appreciate the dialogue on these areas of mutual interest, and I mean, really, we're hoping that we are and continue to be, or can be, a good neighbor with the city of North Chicago. It's important to us.
I know you have been with the schools. I know, excuse me, my daughter was the principal of Forest Hill School, and she got recognized by the President of the United States because of her because of the schools and the cooperation with the Navy and so forth. That was a great thing for her. But every week, the people from the Navy used to come over to work with the kids, and so forth. And the kids just look forward to that. Just every evening, they would come over and support them.
And we're supporting that. We just recently have formalized a couple more of those relationships. In the past,
Okay.
it was, I'll say, kind of an ad hoc relationship. If you knew somebody, they would bring some sailors and some friends over. But when that individual left, it kind of fell off.
Okay.
So within the naval station and working with those 50 tenant commands, within the past 2 years, about 2 years ago, we started, and it's still growing. We started a more formal partnership in education with the local school district here in North Chicago. So now, instead of it being just, hey, I know Joe will bring some sailors to Forstall.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that Training Support Center is their partner command with that school. And so when Joe's a sailor, leaves,
right.
the relationship still exists between the command and the school so that the sailors can get in there. The sailors love getting into the schools and working with the kids. And we hope it's helpful to those teachers. But each school in North Chicago, from the charter schools through all the other schools in North Chicago, have a partner command on the installation that they should be working with one-on-one to make sure that if they need something, we can provide it within the things that we can do for the school district. But I'm very proud of the program. I hope it keeps growing. There's some very great partnerships I see growing between some of these commands and some of the schools, and some of the programs that exist out there, such as Sea Perch and some other STEM-related activities. I think I've seen a lot of
Just
growth.
about Sea Perch. What's the
Sea Perch is it's a Navy sponsored program, and it's building a underwater robot. And there's a competition. They're all throughout the country. And over the past 3 years, the competition here in the local area has been held at Recruit Training Command at their pool. And teams will build a robot. They have a course to go through. They normally have to put a display together or tell some sort of technical explanation of what they did. And last year, particularly at Neil Science and Math, there was a great partnership between one of the lieutenant commands and that school who put the Sea Perch together, were able to compete. And the sailors got a lot out of it. I think the kids got a lot out of it. Also at the high school, there was a team as well. But you build the robot, you come to the pool, you compete, but you learn a lot through the process. And again, I thought it was very rewarding for those sailors who were able to participate. And I hope the kids got something out of it as well. But it's a STEM activity, and it's good. It's happening again this year.
Now, tell us about every naval recruit. Is it mandatory that they learn how to swim?
Oh, that's getting a little bit outside of my swim lane. They got a pool over there. They're at least putting a pool a couple times, I believe. And like I said, this I'll keep the base and the sewers going and all the electricity on. Captain Garrick runs RTC, but I believe every sailor has a minimum level of swimming that they have to accomplish. That they have the pools over there, but do they have to be a great swimmer? I can't give you that, but everybody's at least getting wet and having to do a little bit of swimming. I can't tell you that much. They've got the pools.
I know I never could. I retired from, well, I didn't retire. I enlisted, drafted rather, into the Army. But I never could make it Navy. I didn't think about the Navy because I couldn't swim. I still can't swim. And that's almost a mandatory thing now, I guess, in high school.
It is, but yeah, it's a good skill to have, but I will tell you from a Navy perspective, we hope that we're never swimming. That means something went wrong, but it's a good skill to have, and the recruits get a chance to do it. There are certain rates in the Navy where you have to know how to swim. Obviously a diver, but there's some others as well. But the opportunities are there, whether it's in boot camp or after boot camp. If someone needs to learn how to swim, there's opportunities to do that from a couple sources within the Navy.
You mentioned about the relationship between North Chicago and Great Lakes, and one is that you have graduation exercises every week. You want to tell us about
Yes, the Recruit Training Command has a graduation about 48 Fridays out of the year.
Okay.
So of those 35,000 to 40,000 new sailors who are hitting the street, they're going to have a graduation, and the families want to see them graduate. So on Fridays, generally on Fridays, that's when they do it. So the families will come in and see. Usually it's between about 500 sailors and sometimes up to 1,400 sailors every week.
Wow.
Going from recruit to sailor, and then moving on to their next duty station. So it gets pretty busy. Traffic gets a little bit worse on Friday mornings when the graduations happen. But that's I think about 100, by our estimates, about 125,000 to 140,000 folks who are coming to the installation to Lake County every year to see the graduation and to welcome their sailor, give them a big hug before they hit the fleet.
And Lake County welcomes it because of the restaurant activities, the hotel, for the families and
Yes,
so
sir.
forth,
Yes, sir.
It's works fine. I know our church have at least 100 sailors around Christmas time, where we take vans and go out and pick them up and bring them back and so forth, and provide telephones for them to call their families.
That's a big one, yes,
keep that
sir.
relationship. And we get phone calls and letters back that sailors that have gotten home and remembered what happened and send letters back to the church. Saying how grateful
Thank
they were.
you for doing that. That is great for them to be able to get out and get a home cooked meal when they're
Right.
maybe haven't had one in a while.
Right, and that telephone call.
The telephone call's big too.
We talked about interaction with the community, and that's why I met you at the North Chicago Community Days. This was a fantastic event that the mayor has. 2 days, I guess, Saturday and Sunday. It used to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the parades and all. And Navy, you participate, and do you have your Navy band participate too?
Whenever they can. So I've been able to go to North Chicago Community Days for the past 3 years. It's been great. I appreciate the invitation, and I've been able to even walk the parade route with the mayor. And he's got quite an arm when it comes to slinging that candy out there to the kids. That's pretty good. I couldn't keep up with him. But we've had the band last year. The Navy band played on the stage. I think the year before.
Oh yes.
The year before, the band played marched in the actual parade.
Okay.
And I think there was a color guard at least 2 of the 3 years as well. Navy band stays really pretty busy. And oftentimes, if they hit one event one year, they won't come to that event because there's another event they'll hit somewhere else. But they have been able to participate at least 2 of the 3 years I've been here, and it's my favorite band. So I like to see them anywhere I can. And when they're working local, it's even better.
It's either that I think was the jazz band they have. They really played outstanding.
They can play anything. They really can. A lot of folks think it's just going to be John Philip Sousa, but no, that was Horizon, their popular music band, played this past year, and they do pretty well.
Do you still have fireworks annually around the 4th of July on the base?
Yes, sir. We have been able to get that. I believe before I got here, they were able to bring that back after a couple government changes. But we do have our 4th of July celebration on the 3rd and 4th of July. Normally we'll bring bands into the base, allow folks to come onto the base and to part of the base. See part of things that are going on the base, watch the bands, and then we have I think it's a pretty good fireworks show on both days.
I was wondering about security on the base. Security has changed a lot, though, too.
It has.
Since I left there. It was in 1990, though.
Yes, sir. And that I do get comments on that. Folks say, base used to be able to get on the base a lot easier. Okay. With 9/11 and and with what has just happened with the security environment, public safety and security is my number one thing I have to focus on every day. So we do not just allow anybody to show up and go on base, except on the 3rd and 4th of July, but we have very, very strict procedures with what bags can be brought. Everybody goes through a metal detector. It's a very safe environment in order for us to do that. but working again with our partners, with North Chicago, Lake Bluff, and the Sheriff's Department, every day we're looking at public safety, and we've got, again, these great partnerships, and I appreciate it because we need that defense in depth. Good community policing is really keeping the base safe. And again, I can't say enough about the partnerships we've had with our local law enforcement. They are incredibly supportive, communicate with us often, and help keep that base and help keep us very safe.
Mm-hmm. I know the the Navy always, well, Great Lakes community always participate in the North Chicago annual forecasts. Someone from the Navy is always on participating in that forum that they have forecasting what's be happening in the area. And the naval forecast is really a focal interest, to among the people in Lake County.
I was able to participate this last year at the North Chicago forecast, and so we were able to chat about some of the things where we think the base is going. Mm-hmm. We're always having little maintenance, and I think I spent a lot of time talking just about the museum and some of the opportunities with the museum coming up. But again, we don't see. I have not been informed of any changes, any significant changes. Boot camp's still going to be the boot camp here. They're still going to be putting 35,000 to 40,000 sailors through a year. The Training Support Center and the Center of Excellence is still going to be doing what they do in the for the near future. Mm-hmm. And my job, one of my top 4 priorities is make sure that I and the folks who come behind me in this job are sustaining the mission of the base, so we can support those 50 tenant commands. And it keeps us busy, but we're going to keep plugging away at keeping the support going.
Privatizing is a word that's used quite frequently in the past few years, and you're still using privatizing for every opportunity you get to save the dollars, right?
Well, I would say there's always privatizing comes up for certain things. A lot of those decisions are taken care of either in Washington, D.C., whether it's from big Department of Defense or from big Navy. But we talked about privatized housing. That was a decision made by Department of Defense leadership a number of years ago. We do have contractors who work certain jobs on base, but we have to be good stewards of the money that the taxpayers are giving us. Right. And we have to meet mission, but also be good stewards. So sometimes there's a contracting or a contractor who can provide that service or that thing that we need, and we'll look at that, whether it's locally or at my higher headquarters. Mm-hmm. But we're trying to be good stewards. We have to be good stewards of the resources that, again, the taxpayers are giving us to do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the utilities, you have a relatively new water plant, don't you? I know North Chicago has I'd say relatively new. When you say relatively new, it could be 10, 15 years old,
Yes,
still be new. But they have a huge one, and you have a huge one too. But is there any effort been made to try to work together?
I know we
from
do
the water facility. From
the water perspective, we do make our own water on base, and then North Chicago has their plant. Yeah. We do work very closely with, from our public works perspective, and do back each other up. Yeah. I think right now, again, the cost-benefit analysis has been done, at least from the Navy side, and I think we're pretty solid where we are now. But that that could change. It just takes. We'll see what happens over the next few years. But right now, it's pretty solid with where we are. We're pretty consistent with the costs, and looking at the cost-benefit analysis, I think we're pretty solid where we are right now. Mm-hmm.
Being a city within a city, you have your own your travel, only travel agency, right? Your own travel agency.
We do. Well, we have
yes. many things you have your own, but I just thought about the travel.
Oh yes, sir. And that's part of our morale, welfare, and recreation. The folks who do. Supposed to provide the fun and support the sailors and family. They do have a travel agency there, have access to a number of things, not just travel, but some tickets to shows in Chicago, Milwaukee, all throughout the Midwest. And so they provide a nice service for the sailors and for military families in the area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When the sailor completes boot camp, then it depends on what scores he make on this test or what field he's going into. where he leaves and goes when he leaves Great Lakes?
A lot of it depends on needs of the Navy.
Oh, okay.
Again, so they may need a lot of, this flavor of sailor in this area, but they generally try to get a chance to say where they're going to go. Again, it's a little bit outside my area of expertise. A lot of sailors get what they want. Some sailors don't. But I think from my perspective, I've had a couple jobs I didn't think I wanted, and they turned out really pretty good. And this was not one of them. I wanted this job, but the needs of the Navy really drive a lot of where those sailors are going to end up. But they do get a choice based on how they test, and then how they perform in boot camp also weighs into some of those as well.
Education plays a great part. Because I know when I went in, I was placed based on my educational, accomplishments. I wanted to go to Germany, but they say, no, we got a slot for you in Korea. So that's my friends went. I thought I should go with them to Germany, but I ended up in Korea working, and I was, like chief clerk and head, the office jobs, But the Army felt they should. The quartermaster needed me better, so I ended up in Korea my whole overseas. Separation of family, that plays a great part in what military persons make a career out of it too.
A lot. Everybody has to make their own personal choices, but I think family separation, and I can speak personally. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I know you probably spent some time with the family. It's hard when you get a young sailor. Maybe that's all they wanted to do was to get away from their family and go see the world. And I can understand that. But you maybe get a spouse, get some kids. It becomes a balancing act. But I will say that the military spouse, they've got the hard job. When the recruit division commanders, as an example, who are here doing training recruits at boot camp, they've got very long days. And so their families, they don't see that spouse as often as they would like to, even here when it's shore duty. Out at sea, I've done my time on ships and done my deployments. You just got to find what works for you. And again, the hardest job is to be a military spouse, and they do great. And again, it's a tough life, but I've found it very rewarding. I think obviously a lot of other folks have as well. And I owe a great deal to my spouse for her support and everything she's done for the family, as all sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines owe their spouses a debt of gratitude as well.
As far as education is concerned, we say it as far as like North Chicago High School, a lot of the students never leave North Chicago, but by having the relationship with the students from the base, that's their overseas training right there. They learn a lot.
Yes, sir.
But there's not as much, I guess, because of the cutback in the buildings and the budgets and everything. We don't have that fraternization like we used to have, with the Navy participation, in the local schools.
Yeah, we're trying. I think it kind of comes and goes on, how many folks are, I think, within the district and living locally.
Yeah.
But again, with the partnership and education program, we're working on getting sailors in there.
Yeah.
I know the district has reorganized a little bit. So Forrestal, I know, used to be have a lot higher percentage of military kids, and other schools did not.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of evened out. I think it kind of ebbs and flows. But there's a lot of military kids in the local district, and I know they bring something, hopefully bring something to the table. As you're talking, maybe a different perspective from coming somewhere new, but also it's good to learn something about the local area you're coming into, and being a good part of the community and becoming a good neighbor and understanding, who we're living with and who we're going to school with. So hopefully there's a good dialogue that comes, even if the percentages maybe be a little bit different.
I mentioned about the Golden 13, on
Yes, sir.
Buckley Road, and there's another area, the Dory Miller.
Okay, yes, sir.
Dory Miller, as you know, came from the bottom of the ship. I guess he was a cook, and I don't know how it happened, but he shot down several Japanese planes.
Yes, sir.
And he got killed in battle, but it wasn't at that incident. He got killed later in another incident. But there's some barracks over there, and it's named after him, the Dory Miller Barracks. But I wonder how many people celebrate that or know about that.
We do I've been to a number of events on base, just in my 2.5 years here, where the story of Dory Miller has been brought up and told. I don't think we're maybe. I don't have a specific day for that, but I believe it's our 600 barracks, or those barracks that you're speaking of. But I do remember there's a kind of a historic picture. I think when he was getting, I forgot the award, may have been a Bronze Star, that I see floating around on base as well. But the barracks are still there. The story is still told, but not on a specific date. It comes to a couple different events.
Yes, it is. I know, speaking of celebrations, we used to have, do you still have different celebrations on the base? The Hispanic Week, the African American History Week, Asian Pacific Islander, and everyone on the base used to look forward to those celebrations. So I wonder, do you still celebrate that?
We do, yes, sir. We have a number of diversity councils within within the base. Some of the individual commands have their own diversity councils, like the larger ones, like Recruit Training Command has. You know, they're a pretty big animal unto themselves. But most of the commands have various celebrations for whatever month, whether it be African History Month, Hispanic American, Pacific Islanders is another one that pops up.
Right.
And I know for my staff that run the base, we do those every month, depending on what the month is, what we want to focus on. But yeah, they're still there, sir. And I think those celebrations are great. I have gotten a test, and I've had opportunity to taste different foods. I've had opportunities to dance dances I would never have danced and shouldn't have danced, by the way.
Right.
Little,
and then there's forums that are held to,
yes, sir. So we have those opportunities, but we're seeing, it's a diverse force.
Right.
And, when I do talk to younger sailors, sometimes, when they come to boot camp or over at boot camp, primarily, a lot of them had not really worked in a diverse force before.
Yeah.
And again, I don't do a lot with the recruits, but when I get a chance to talk to them, that is one thing that a lot of them say, a good high percentage, hey, this is the first time I've met folks from, I'm from New York City, never left Brooklyn, and I'm meeting somebody from Texas or from the Midwest. So you can see that education happening right in front of our eyes, and eyes kind of getting wide open, but they learn a lot from each other, and we hope by doing those celebrations that we share and learn a lot from each other as well, to just keep moving forward as one team with one fight in the Navy.
Speaking of education in the military, I was in Korea in a tent. We had eight personnel in the tent, and they were from, I don't know whether they planned it like this or what happened, but each one of those 8 was from different parts of the country. And we had some really good discussions,
yes, sir.
It was great. I to show you the impact it had upon me, I still can remember,
And it's a great opportunity that folks who, just to broaden their scope.
The mayor brought up at the city council a couple of times about the civilian community buying goods from the commissary store.
Yes, sir.
But is that legal to do that, or?
It is not.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that had come up a few times, but
I know Senator Durkin even was trying to talk about it at the congressional level, but
that's a Washington D.C. decision. It's not within the realm of the possible right now, but with a policy law change, those are things that could be looked at, but right now it's not legal.
It sounded like it. It sounded like it was reasonable to us. We could, right in the city on Green Bay Road and so forth. But that just what do you call it? A privilege among the military workers.
It is. It's one of the benefits you have from being within the military.
Yeah.
But I know that I've had been involved in some of those conversations, but that will take a higher level than mine to make a decision on that. And right now, the policy is pretty clear.
Well, what's new for Great Lakes? Where you see Great Lakes in the the growth in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, from what I see,
Okay.
and you know, I'm only here for a limited amount of time. I think it. You know, we'll do what we're told. We'll spend the money that we get.
Right.
We have to be a little careful on that.
Right.
But you know, it is the only boot camp. I have heard no plans of another boot camp being built from that perspective. But I think we're meeting mission, and I think, you know, there's opportunities for other folks, other mission sets to come to the base. But you know, my job right now is to make sure I'm meeting the mission today. We do look to the future. Nobody's told me any, you know, whiz bang news that something huge is coming here, but no one's told me anything that would surprise me that's leaving. So, he said the base is 106 years old, so we're gonna keep our focus on meeting mission today and in the future. And you know, some things that are 106 years old need work. We got some things that are newer, but I think we're doing okay.
Nothing new like the federal James A. Lovell Federal Health Care Center. That's not another one of those.
Not that I'm aware of, sir. No, sir.
Well, what about Captain Hawkins? You've been in the military how long?
I've been almost 27 years now.
Okay. What's new for you? Are you, let's see, I guess the next step is admiral, and then is the next step from captain?
Well, that is the next rank up, and those decisions are made not at my level, nor do I have a vote in that. So for me right now, I'm enjoying my tour here as the commanding officer, Naval Station Great Lakes. So I'm going to keep focusing on that, and one of these days I'll figure out what I want to do in the future.
Well, Captain Hawkins, we've been great talking with you and letting Lake County know. I told Lake County, you are a person that Lake County should know. And you have proven it, and we're just happy that you've taken time from your busy schedule to share your life with us, and also what's happening on Great Lakes. Now we know that Great Lakes is appear to be a city within a city, but now we know what's going on over there. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Captain Hawkins, Naval Station Great Lakes, the commanding officer, and he shared his time with us. I'd like to also come in on John Shepard, the Public Affairs Community Outreach Coordinator at Naval Station Great Lakes, and without him, this program would not have taken place. So all have been benefited here in Lake County. Thank you very much for listening to another awareness session on Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.